Hello, Bellevue. I think this is turning into one of my favorite opportunities, a chance to talk with you directly and share some thoughts. I am Art Jarvis, Superintendent of the Bellevue School District. If I haven't said it, I'm a very proud superintendent of the Bellevue School District. This is a terrific place. By the way, kind of symbolic of the change that we're involved, one of the next topics we'll be dealing with is masks. But today I'm going to remove it. I had asked my fellow colleague here if it was permissible during this time so that people who can understand better, if they can see the lips and see the communications, I'll remove the mask for now and have this conversation. But I share this conversation. I'm joined by Simone Neal, our Director of Employee Relations. For just a second, human relations, the HR department, as they talk about it, or formerly known as personnel department. Simone is one of the people that is responsible for one of my favorite sayings, and that is the reason that I stay in the business is I don't think you can find a better place with better people than in the education world. But that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by a very careful culture that is established and a quality standard. So today's opportunity to talk with Simone Neal is to share a little bit of the insight of how did we get there in education? How do we maintain the standards that we maintain? So first, I would just say, Simone Neal, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Jarvis.
Would you take a minute to introduce Simone Neal in a sense of joining the education world and ending up doing what you're doing? How did that happen?
Sure. When I started education, it was 16 years ago. I started in Baltimore City Public Schools as a teacher and then moved through the trajectory up into school administration. And then 5 years ago, I joined Bellevue School District team and I started as a school administrator and moved to HR. I've always been passionate about retaining and hiring educators and also giving access to people like myself who came here from, I was an immigrant and I'm a product of an immigrant family, and education was the way that we had access to opportunities. So my passion lies in giving access to people like myself and students like myself and opportunities so that they can live a quality life in our country.
As you were talking, I found myself smiling because I think in my long career, one of the things that people think of is maybe I'll be an HR person. Maybe I'll do that in the future without recognizing how hard the job really is and how much learning there is. Would you mention, if you would, any surprises you had as you stepped into HR versus what you originally thought it might be?
I'm surprised every day, which is my favorite part of the job. My main job is to problem solve. So from the time I get to work to the end of the night, I'm problem solving, and I'm also looking for talent. And with looking for talent, it comes with screening and looking at our student population and who are we serving. One of my main passions is to put people that look like our students in front of them in all roles, not just supporting roles, but leadership roles. I think that's really important, and in teaching roles. And so I think what surprises me the most is that every single day I'm learning something new, which is also my favorite part of the job.
So, if I may, give a little insight into you're interviewing someone, what are you looking for? And that's always the question, that whether it's a candidate or somebody observing, but what are you actually looking for in a school district hire?
I'm looking for someone who first and foremost put loves students, loves and regardless of what position you're in, whether you're in nutrition, transportation, in the classroom, in leadership, in HR, I want someone that understands that our goal is to make sure that students have access to learning and whatever position you're in, we all contribute to students learning and having a high quality education. So that for me is the most important thing. And following that, an understanding of equity and an understanding of the importance of diversity. We live in a world now that is so diverse, so many talents, racially, socially, economically. We're very diverse, and I want someone that understands that all people, regardless of who you are, you have the right to have access to a high quality education. So, in all positions, that is a standard for me, whatever position we're hiring for.
So one of the things I love about Bellevue is it's one of the only, I think there are only a couple minority majority communities in the state of Washington. We're not known for our diversity in parts outside of the city. Yet here's Bellevue with a minority majority community. How does that affect you? You mentioned looking for staff that looks like the community. What are the complications of doing that? It sounds simple, but then it takes a long, long time and it's a hard task.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite tasks in this role because I have an opportunity now, especially post pandemic, to get creative with how we're recruiting staff. And one of those things that I'm looking to do next year is start to look at HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, as well as HSIs, which is Hispanic Serving Institutions, so that we start filling positions and that we can make our staff mirror our student population. That hasn't been done before. Traditionally, we've been recruiting around the area. So we go to California or Portland or Eastern Washington. And like you said, there isn't a lot of diversity. So now we've really had to like look outside of our traditionally our areas in which we recruit, and now we're looking at like East Coast, for example, where there is diversity, and we're saying, hey, let me tell you about a place called Bellevue and why you should move. How I know that works is because I'm a person that was recruited from Baltimore, Maryland, all the way on the other side of the country. And I knew the demographics, but then when I looked at Bellevue's demographics, I knew that this was a place that I wanted to come in, that I could make impact. And so that's our job, is to find people like myself who are ready and willing and are ready to educate our children. So I think it's definitely possible.
So I think, again, my long career, the difficulty of finding, for example, Black educators is significant. Talk about that. You've touched on some things you're doing. Two parts. Are we having any success
Mhm.
as we look for diverse candidates? And what are the complications in finding that diversity?
We are having success. So if you look at our data each year, especially with our certificated staff, we're seeing progress. We're moving upward in terms of recruiting and retaining diverse population, specifically Black staff that you touched on. I can speak personally. We have to get outside of this region, which is the Washington region. We have to do things like through social media, and like this interview. This is really important. This is critical because it's important for other people to see me in a leadership role in Bellevue, knowing that there's ability to move up, that you don't have to only be in one position, that you can move, that you can be in a leadership role. And that's important. Representation is important. For me, when I came here, what drew me in is that the person previous to that was in my role previously was a person of color. The previous superintendent was a person of color. And so those were really important for me when I made my decision. And so I think now we have to work with the communications department with really marketing who we are and really showing diversity and really showing the different faces of Bellevue. And traditionally, I don't know that we did that well, but we're definitely changing and leveraging all these, diverse candidates that are filling the positions right now.
I love hearing you talk, Simone. So I'm going to encourage. I'm going to switch now to gender for a minute, and I think one of the things that I have noted over my long career again is that Education has been one of the bastions for women. Ability to enter and drop out, raise a family, come back in. Uh, Women administrators, although there was an era where you looked at the principals were males and the entire staff was female. You not only represent a black administrator, but you represent a female. We're entering Women's History Month.
Yeah.
We're also in Black History Month. Talk about the gender and the role of women in the workplace in an education system.
Yeah, that, as you stated, it's historically, just especially in like an elementary school, we see a lot of women in education. But then when you're starting to move into the leadership roles, and especially when you get into the superintendent, can't like your seat, then we start seeing that decline. And I think it's really important again to find those connections, make those connections, and highlight the women that have taken those roles, and really hear about their unique perspective and what are their needs, because sometimes their needs are different. For example, childcare needs. What do you need? That's kind of been my approach this year, is asking our staff and what are your needs? They've changed, especially as a result of the pandemic. We've been working with our labor unions to discuss um, those unique those unique needs of women this year that are the primary caregiver, and what can we do in terms of leave? How do we attract you? What are we doing for childcare? That's now become a part of our HR function, which previously I don't think that we've had such a focus on um, childcare as a chip to recruit. So I think it's really important to. I know for me, seeing people like Michelle Obama, seeing women that are in superintendent roles, it is a motivator for me to continue because I know that it's possible. And seeing especially leaders of color in those roles, it motivates me to continue getting my education, continue moving up in the educational realm when I see representation. It's so key, and that's why I continue to repeat that.
It's interesting that in the state of Washington, particularly in the Puget Sound region, our female superintendents have been very prominent
Yeah.
and very successful. I think it's been a beautiful, absolutely drop dead gorgeous example of what people can aspire to and watching it happen within our business and then doing what you do so well, which is to encourage people who should be entering the administrative ranks and finding ways to extend their skills. What kind of, you mentioned childcare in particular. This has been a tough time on administrators. What are you seeing in terms of people aspiring to administration? Are you seeing people run away from it because they've been beaten up so badly?
I do. I'm experiencing that, and I think as even in the business world, as they talk about the great reshuffle that's happening right now, which is just folks are saying reevaluating their career, they're retiring, they're saying, is this something I really want to do? That's impacting us here as well, especially our leadership. We've been in a really tight time during the pandemic. We're experiencing burnout, just like in the business world and in the business sector. I mentioned childcare already, and I want to just mention um, women specifically, since we're in that month, and folks of color have experienced burnout at a larger rate because they've been on the front line. So if I contextualize that for Bellevue, our classified staff, our early learning staff, our special educators, they worked throughout the pandemic. And so they didn't have sort of this option of remote. They were in person. So they had to really navigate all of the challenges that came with the pandemic while being in person and still providing services for our students. Though that group of folks right now are experiencing burnout, and what it's doing is it is giving us more opportunity to hire because they're either taking leaves or they're exiting the profession. So we are coming up against that, and that's the same with our leaders. Some of our leaders. So we have really got to shift our focus from just recruiting to then now retaining. And so that's kind of something that I'm really focused on this year is retention and what do you need? What do you need to stay? What do you need to do? We've been working with our building administrators to create flexible options when people need mental health day or mental wellness. We have a focus on that now more than ever. Prior to the pandemic, we talked about, oh, I need a mental health day. Now we have to strategically build them into the year because that's what people need and that's what they're asking for. So I think we're using that now as a way to even recruit all the way up to cert admin. We need that.
I admire in general the idea of employee assistance, and I admire especially what I see in Bellevue, because I think it's been a commitment by the community, by the school district, to invest in their staff. That it's not an easy way out to just let somebody fall by the wayside because they have a problem, whether it's economics, finances, marital, whatever it may be, but rather a way of assisting in that. But let's switch to a piece that's probably pretty vital to all of us, and that's how do we encourage young people to join our world, which I happen to think is the best of all professions. How do you do that, Simone?
I think I've been I've been reading about this over and over because this is the big question that a lot of districts are asking right now, and I think we do it through marketing, and I think we do it through partnering with the local universities. I've been looking at the trend data on the universities, and if you look at the education program since 2020 and then 2021, you see a decline of our young people enrolling in those programs. So I think it is on us to, kind of restore and renew that sense of joy in our profession, and then also market that and advertise why we do what we do, why we love what we do. We say it, but we're not showing, we're not advertising that, we're not marketing that. And I think that is really critical for us to get out in the community, advertise that, talk to aspiring teachers, talk to our students that are leaving now and our seniors going into college. One of the things that I have this afternoon, we're meeting with para educators who are sometimes they're younger, our GSAs, and I'm saying, hey, here's a pathway to become an educator. We had a meeting last week. I was so excited because over 65 pairs showed up to an information session on how do I become a teacher. That's exciting. That's a recruiting. We have a recruiting ground right here in Bellevue School District, and so I think our job right now, and I think it's really critical that we partner not only with communication, not only marketing, but with our local universities and really get out there and say, hey, the profession is still great. Yes, we went through pandemic, but guess what? We're coming out. Kids are still learning. We learned a lot. We now know that we can shift to remote learning in a matter of a week. It's amazing what's been happening. And so I think that that's sort of my strategy now is like marketing, reminding people why we do what we do. I would love to start interviewing teachers, putting them on this panel, highlighting the wonderful work they're doing, and just bringing that sense of hope back to our profession.
There's an interesting opportunity in our world in which we watch people with their second career, or they've tried what they thought was their natural bent of business or whatever that may be, and then they work their way towards the education. And can you talk about that as far as both the recruitment and the attraction for people? Why do they come to education after 20 years of being something else?
Yes, I can talk about that. Right now, I think to put it in perspective, we went to City U last week to do a recruitment opportunity, and about 60% of the candidates were former engineers or they were at Microsoft. And the one thing that I heard everyone say, the trend that I got from that, they wanted to make a difference and they wanted to impact lives. And I leverage that because we do that every single day. Sometimes so much I take it for granted that because I just know that when I come to work, I'm going to impact lives every single day. And there aren't many jobs that do that. And that is the number one reason why people are shifting over. They want something that they feel great about. They're impacting students' lives, and they want to make a difference. And our job and our profession, we get to do that every day. And so it's really not a hard sell. I let them know how we do that, and then we just start talking about the transition in an education program, and they realize this is where I want to be, and we want you.
What a beautiful statement, and I just have that feeling, and somewhere out there is somebody you just touched. And they're gonna think about that and say, I wanna make a difference in my life, and education is one of the places that you can do that.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Simone.
you're welcome.